Hey everyone, so I wanted to share with you some interesting places I've been to in Ningxia, China. To give you a little bit of background, my wife and her family are both from Ningxia. It's a very, very cool place. I gathered a little bit of videos so you can check them out. So let's get to it. The first place I want to tell you guys about is Ningxia's Xiahu Lake. It's otherwise known as Sand Lake. Now this lake is actually more like an oasis really. It's completely surrounded by desert and just a ton of water. It's one of the most picturesque features of Ningxia. And you actually have to travel by boat to get to the actual sand island itself. But along the way you'll be able to see a bird sanctuary and it might be worth to check out. Though we only saw like one swan, so maybe you'll get lucky and see some other birds. But after moving on, we finally arrived and it was amazing. So after exploring the sand island for a bit, we actually stumbled upon a Hui minority performance. The Hui are a Muslim ethnic group in Ningxia. In fact, they're the predominant minority ethnic group in Ningxia. The next place I absolutely recommend is Chengqian Pagoda. You can actually climb this thing all the way to the top, and once you get to the top, you'll see a huge view of Ningxia. This structure actually dates all the way back to the Western Xia dynasty, during which the Mongolians were ruling the western part of China. Moving on to food, one of my favorite things to pick up in the morning is called Mo. And I guess you can describe it as a Chinese hamburger because all it is a meat within a bean, which is like a bread. And oftentimes it's like sipped with like some kind of wonton soup. But another interesting thing to get in this region is called a dry pot, and it's kind of like a hot pot except it's used dry seasoning and you fill it up with hot water. And it's chili and sesame and it's extremely fragrant and it's very, very, very delicious. I highly recommend for you spice people out there to grab this. Like a hot pot, you just sit around with your friends with a bunch of ingredients that you pick out and you just go to town. This part of China in Ningxia is absolutely known for their lamb, so definitely try to go for lamb. Moving on from food, one of the cool things that I always like to do is just walk around a park, get a really good feel for what China is kind of like by its parks. A lot of the elderly like to get together in a community and just do some kind of art, whether it be dancing or playing music. It's pretty cool. And at night, you definitely want to get together with some friends and do some karaoke at a KTV. It's a lot of singing and drinking and eating. It's a lot of fun. The next place I want to talk about is kind of a unique one. It's China's Western Film Studio. It's kind of like one of the few Chinese, what they call China Woods. A lot of TV shows and movies were filmed here that feature Ming and Qing dynasty type buildings. Now this building was particularly interesting to me. It featured a bunch of Chinese folklore ghosts. There's so many I didn't even realize, but they were pretty crazy looking, as you can see. They all have a ton of backstory and it just leaves you wanting to know more. Another pretty cool thing you get to see is this guy doing kind of a reenactment of what it was like to make baijiu, which is like a Chinese white alcohol. It's very, very strong, so it's not for the faint of heart. I recommend stopping off for a couple snacks here. One of these being jidan guanbing. It's kind of like a crepe that you first make an egg crepe style thing, and then you add like some hot sauce and some green onions, and then you put like this donut in between. I managed to capture the entire process, so you can pretty much see it all here. The next snack I recommend is chou tofu, which is like a fermented tofu that smells rotten, like a cheese that's gone bad, but it tastes so good. Now we came upon this like Ming Dynasty wedding. It's supposed to be like this reenactment, and I think they were just messing with this guy, but it was pretty funny. This guy just didn't know what he was doing, and no one knew what they were doing, but it turned out good anyways. Now, one of the coolest things I've ever done in China was take a sheepskin raft ride on the Yellow River. Apparently in the past, they would fill sheepskin carcasses up with air and just float down on a raft to the other side. Now, this next place I didn't really get much footage of, but it's called the Haibao Pagoda. It's actually one of the oldest structures in Ningxia, dating all the way back to the 500 AD period where the northern and southern dynasties were ruling China. But that pretty much wraps up this video. I really just wanted to show you what Ningxia was like in a summary. I think I might do more videos like these in the future when I go back to China, perhaps featuring a province in each video. If that sounds good to you and you want to see more type of this content, leave me a like. Thanks everyone.